In 1958, a theater critic named Kenneth Tynan made a shocking observation. He noticed that the most electrifying performers weren't the technically perfect ones. They were the actors who seemed to forget the audience existed, who became so absorbed in their role that the fourth wall disappeared entirely. The crowd could sense when someone was truly present versus when they were just hitting their marks. Fast forward 65 years, and we've inverted this completely. Now everyone's hitting their marks all the time. We've turned our entire existence into a performance where forgetting the audience is impossible, because we've become our own audience, constantly monitoring ourselves through the lens of potential viewers. This is what happens when living becomes performing. When every moment exists primarily to be documented, shared, and validated by an audience that's mostly strangers. We've turned our entire lives into a curated exhibition where the experience matters less than the evidence that we had it. But here's what's strange. The more we perform authenticity, the less authentic we become. Social media promised to connect us, but it's created a culture where we're more concerned with appearing interesting than actually being interested, more focused on documenting wisdom than acquiring it. Jazz musicians understand something profound about the relationship between performance and authenticity. When Charlie Parker stepped onto a stage, he wasn't performing a version of himself. He was discovering himself in real time. Each solo was an exploration, not an exhibition. The audience witnessed genuine creation, not curated content. The difference is presence versus presentation. Performance, in the authentic sense, requires you to be completely here, responding to what's actually happening. But performative behavior, the kind we've normalized, requires you to be constantly outside yourself, monitoring how you look to others. Ralph Ellison wrote about jazz as individual assertion within and against the group. But there's a crucial element. The assertion has to be real. It has to emerge from genuine engagement with the moment, not from a calculated attempt to manage perception. When a musician trades fours with the band, they're not trying to look creative. They're actually creating. The performative trap affects more than just our social media habits. We've started performing productivity at work, performing happiness in relationships, performing intelligence in conversations. We've become so focused on the optics of living well that we've forgotten what living well actually feels like. This creates what we might call performance drift, the gradual distance between who you are and who you're presenting yourself to be. Start with small adjustments for the camera, and eventually you lose track of what you actually think, feel, or want when no one's watching. The neuroscience is revealing. When we're genuinely engaged in an activity, what researchers call flow state, our self-monitoring brain networks actually quiet down. We stop thinking about how we look or sound. But when we're performing for others, those monitoring systems are hyperactive. We're literally thinking about ourselves. Jazz improvisation offers a different model. The music emerges from deep listening to the other players, to the moment, to what wants to happen next. There's no separation between the musician and the music, no gap between being and appearing. Think about the last time you did something purely for the joy of it. No documentation, no sharing, no external validation required. How long has it been since you have had an experience that existed only for you, in that moment, that wasn't optimized for replay or retelling? The antidote to performative living isn't to stop sharing or connecting. It's to remember that the most magnetic people are those who are genuinely absorbed in something beyond themselves. Artists lost in their craft. Scientists excited by their questions. People who are so present to what they're doing that self-consciousness dissolves. There's a reason we're drawn to live music, live theater, live anything. We can sense the difference between genuine presence and performed presence. We can feel when someone is actually there versus when they're monitoring themselves being there. The question isn't whether to perform. We all play roles, and that's not inherently bad. The question is whether your performance is serving your growth or replacing it, whether you're using presentation to discover who you might become or to avoid the risk of being who you actually are. Kenneth Tynan understood that the most powerful performances happen when the performer forgets they're performing. In our age of constant self-documentation, maybe the most radical act is simply being present enough to forget the camera exists. The most authentic performance might be no performance at all. Just showing up fully to whatever you're actually doing, trusting that genuine engagement is more compelling than any curated version of yourself.